everybody, Albano here along with Zain Bando, coming to you this week with a couple of different shorts. Obviously, we're not going to have a full episode this week. We did a whole recap, post-show reaction show, whatever you want to call it, live stream on Sunday morning for UFC 306 or Noche UFC 2 or Riyadh season, Noche, whatever you want to call it. We did a whole recap for it on Sunday morning. So we do have a couple of stories here because the original plan was we were going to preview the IBF heavyweight title fight this weekend between Joshua and Dubois. Well, a couple of stories happened over the course of this past week that we do need to discuss. Starting off with this one, Zan, it is official. Jon Jones, Stipe Miocic, the heavyweight championship is on the line at UFC 309, November 16th, Madison Square Garden. And while that was enough that it could have just been a little early fight preview for us, and we did it later on this week or something, Jon Jones chose to do what Jon Jones likes to do and open his mouth, and he is now teasing that this could be his final fight in the UFC.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, first off, this is an outlet that I never heard of until the time that we're recording is today, which is Monday. Jon Jones told the outlet clocked and loaded out of all publications slash MMA media platforms that it is most likely going to be, his words not mine, most likely going to be his last fight once he's done competing against Stipe Miocic. He said he feels great. He's about 250 pounds. He feels leaner than he's ever been. It seemed like he was in good spirits from the brief clip, but to me, this is really disappointing because, okay, I'm just going to go on a bit of a rant.
Go ahead.
So this is what doesn't make sense to me. So you have the UFC heavyweight champion of the world who sat out for 4 years, go open and whatever, decided, okay, I'm going to test myself and move up to heavyweight. Fine, there's no issue with that. But you wait 4 years. You essentially avoided every turn the then UFC heavyweight champion in Francis Ngannou. You couldn't come to terms for what would have been in one of the biggest fights in UFC history. It's a fight that people still believe in some mythical worlds still needs to happen or is going to happen. I think today's news points to all signs that it won't happen, even though Francis has his own fight coming up. That's number one. And number two, you come back after 4 years and you beat a guy who, by the UFC's dumbed down narrative, says is the best heavyweight in the world when he had barely fought. He had fought under 15 times for the promotion. So first off, anybody calling Cyril Gane the best heavyweight in the world at that particular point in time was nonsense. It was a narrative that the UFC was trying to push because they no longer had their former heavyweight champion who never lost the title inside the Octagon. And number three, just to reiterate the same point over and over again, activity does not mean injury. And Jones tearing his pectoral muscle literally 1 year ago around this exact time period, which was leading up to UFC 295, does not constitute to me that he should be considered an active fighter. Do I have any issue with him having this fight rebooked? I'm one of the people that says no. This is a fight that was supposed to happen a long time ago. This is a fight that I feel still needs to happen. Stipe Miocic has already proved himself as the best heavyweight of all time. Can he beat the greatest of all time at 40 plus years old? I personally don't think he can. But overall, I just think this whole thing is a mess. And I think the UFC has tried to since twist their narrative and give revisionist history as to what actually happened. Because let's be honest, when Jon Jones won the heavyweight title, the fighter that he beat, no disrespect to him, was not the best heavyweight in the world going into the fight, number one. And number two, he's taking on a version of Stipe Miocic that is going to look totally different in 2024 than he did in 2020 per se. And number two, lost his last fight. So, I mean,
and I'll add to that. I would like to add to that because we're talking about Jon Jones and inactivity. Stipe Miocic has not fought since his heavyweight title loss to Francis Ngannou at UFC 260 in March of 2021. And if you remember something that we talked about on a previous episode, there's nobody on the UFC roster that Stipe Miocic has beaten. Everybody else that he has beaten has either been released, has retired from active competition, or some other circumstance. Everybody that Stipe has ever fought, it seems, for the UFC is now basically gone. Stipe Miocic. And that's the thing about this fight. Like, I agree. I'm one of the few people that didn't have a problem with this fight being rebooked. But these are, Zan, two UFC competitors from a previous era. Essentially, they might be the two.
Yeah, pretty much the biggest issue that I have going into this fight is the way the fight is being promoted, because it's not all of not the entire heavyweight timeline is being told in the most truthful, factually accurate way possible, and it's to twist the narrative to make the UFC.
I wouldn't have a problem. I wouldn't have a problem with the GOAT kind of hype, because Jon Jones, Dana White already talks about him being the GOAT, and Stipe Miocic is, in my opinion, the heavyweight GOAT, considering all that he's done.
I think so too.
So I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't mind the buildup of being GOAT versus GOAT, but I think people have a problem with, like you said, that the whole heavyweight timeline has not really been told. The fact that they are saying that Jones and Miocic are the two, greatest active current fighters or active current heavyweight fighters, when you have Tom Aspinall waiting in the wings as an interim champion. And I think people just have a problem in general about this fight being for a heavyweight championship, which I understand, but at the same time, I don't know. Do you think they're on the line?
Sorry, you broke up. What did you think?
I said, I understand people have a problem with Jones and Stipe, maybe fighting for the heavyweight championship when you have Aspinall in the wings, and like you talk about the heavyweight timeline not being told, but do you think Jones versus Stipe would still sell if there was no championship on the line?
Oh, of course, the name value is too huge. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's part of the reason why the UFC didn't strip Jones, is because you know how they are with pay-per-views. Every pay-per-view has to have a title fight at the top of it. So he probably felt like, oh, if we strip Jones, it's gonna F up this whole thing that we're trying to push. Because now, based on the comments of what he just said, I worry that we're gonna go back into a situation that I brought up a couple months ago, where you could get a Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blades rematch, or Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gane for the vacant heavyweight title, a fight that isn't particularly a fresh matchup, assuming that both of these guys retire. That's the big issue.
I mean, agreed. And I mean, I kind of called this from a mile away, because I said a while ago that Jones Stipe. Now, to Jones's credit, him facing a GOAT, a GOAT versus GOAT matchup at Madison Square Garden, with these two have never fought before. And, kind of Jones and Stipe both kind of deserve to fight at Madison Square Garden. It is a storybook ending. There is no doubt about it. But at the same time, when you've got somebody like Tom Aspinall, that potentially the next generation of heavyweight great waiting in the wings, and I don't even know, Zan, if they're going to do something for a vacant heavyweight title. But if Jones and Stipe both retire, regardless of what the result of this fight is, are they just going to name, because he's the interim champion, just name him the heavyweight champion, a la when Robert Whittaker in 2017 was named middleweight champion after George St. Pierre had the colitis issue, which eventually led to his retirement.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know that for certain, but here's a question that I just thought of that I am so excited to ask you now, because everything is intertwining here. So at the time that we're recording this, it's September 16th, officially Mexican Independence Day. That means we are exactly 2 months out from this exact fight. 2 months to the evening, the pay-per-view would be starting about, or it would be starting in about an hour and a half from now, 2 months from now. Do you think this fight actually goes off 2 months from tonight? Why or why not?
I stick with the same opinion that I had, when we talked about this a few weeks ago. My answer is yes, and for the sake of this MSG card, I hope. Although we'll talk in another short about what's been added to this MSG card to kind of really give it an additional spice of hype. But at the same time, I know the UFC tries to not be like boxing, but I think this is a case where you need to have a mandatory backup, and that is Tom Aspinall. You tell Jones and Stipe.
It better be. It better be Tom Aspinall.
But you tell Jones and Stipe, okay, this is last chance. If one of you falls out, the other one of you is fighting Tom Aspinall, or you're pulling out of the fight, and we're gonna have Tom headline the card and strip both of you of the heavyweight championship opportunity, and to name Tom basically the heavyweight champion.
Well, I'm one of those people that's going to take a similar opinion to what you had regarding another fight that we're going to be talking about in another short. I don't think I'm going to believe it until these two step on the scale Friday it wanes that the fight is actually going to happen. So,
who is likely to pull out then? If you're going to go that route, who's more likely to pull out, and Jones or Stipe?
This time, I'm going to say Stipe is more than likely to pull out. That's what I think. I think that Jones would do everything in his power to ensure that his one and only Madison Square Garden opportunity somehow, some way stays put, considering that he's never fought there before. So that's what I think.
Fair enough. I mean, and the thing is, I'm going to go back to an opinion, kind of going on your lines, and that I think if Tom Aspinall were to ever get involved in this somehow, I think, despite what Jones was saying with these recent comments, I think that Jones would be more willing to fight Tom Aspinall than Stipe Miocic is.
Meaning, given a short notice opportunity, you think he would?
Correct.
You think he would do it?
Correct. I think if Stipe gets hurt and Tom Aspinall is filled in, I think Jon would say okay. I think there's a better chance Jon says okay to a short notice fight than Stipe. I think Stipe is so focused with this Jon Jones fight.
Well, I'm going to take it a step further, and I actually have a conspiracy theory. Can I tell you what my?
Oh no! Why? Wait! Why would you say that before I can even play the sound effect? I wasn't even prepared for this.
Go ahead.
I wasn't even ready. Where are you, Arjuf? I need to put this on the soundboard that we have. Here we go. CON. Conspiracy? What is your conspiracy?
Okay, here's my conspiracy. They're announcing this fight as early as they are because they know that something is slightly off with the fight. If you noticed when watching the promo sped through. It was one of those promos that usually when the UFC announces a pay-per-view, it's one of those like extended 2 minute and 45-second promos. To me, that would have felt like it was very brief, like, oh, here's a surprise. UFC 309 is this main event. To me, something still seems a little off, and I still don't know if this fight is going to happen when it's supposed to. But the suspense is real. The countdown to November 16th has begun. And assuming that this fight does happen, my way too early prediction 2 months out is a Jon Jones 4th round TKO. And the only way that I can see Stipe winning this fight is if he does it within the first 10 minutes. So,
well, funny enough that you say first 10 minutes. I think Jones finishes Stipe in the first 10 minutes.
You do?
Yeah. I'm saying I'm taking it one step from you. I'm going first or second round TKO for Jon Jones.
And is it not going to be a competitive fight?
No, it's going to be. I think Stipe will bring it a bit, but I think Jon Jones is going to make this, I wouldn't say as dominant as some of the title fights we saw last weekend, but still vintage Jon Jones.
Okay, my final question before we wrap this short up. Jones seems like he's made it clear that this is his last fight, but is there any possible way we get a legitimate face-off between Jones and Aspinall in the Octagon, assuming that Jones wins? Do you think the UFC would allow that to happen? Is that gonna happen? Because I think that would be one of the greatest WWE style promos in the history of the UFC if they let that happen.
If they let that happen, probably. I mean, you know my opinion. I've called it that I think Jones will retire, but as we'll talk about in another short with another particular UFC superstar, Zan. Money talks.
Money talks for sure. And my final point that I'd like to make on this is the biggest loser in this whole announcement is the one is the one and only Tom Aspinall. And I guess the last thing I can say is, Tom Aspinall, we're holding out hope. We're praying for you, and maybe, just maybe, on the off chance 0.0001% chance that you could fight both of them in the same night. Good luck.
And Zan, I actually have one last thing to note before we wrap things up.
Okay.
Did you know that Jon Jones is the greatest of all time?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, Dana just texted me. He wanted me to remind you of that.
Fair enough. As he does like every third day.
Let's. This is going to be the first short that airs this week, so this will air in our normal time slot for MMA Outsiders, which is a Tuesday night. All I'm going to say is I pray to God Kevin Iole doesn't ask anything at the Contender Series post fight press conference.
I'd be willing to bet a little bit of money, even though I won't be doing that. I'd be willing to bet a little bit of money that he probably will.
All right. That's going to do it for this short. We'll stay tuned to the ETV network here for a couple more shorts this week. Take care, everyone. Until then.
Take care.